The warning came too late. Commander James Torres stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, watching the sensor readings with growing fear. 30 unknown vessels had just appeared at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. They moved in perfect formation like predators circling prey. "Sir, they're not responding to any of our signals," his communications officer reported. The young woman's hands shook slightly as she worked her console. Torres knew what those ships were. Everyone in human space had heard the rumors. The Krathon Empire had been conquering alien worlds in the outer sectors for years. Now they had finally reached human territory. "Send a priority message to Terra Prime Command," Torres ordered. "Tell them we need immediate backup." The response came back within minutes, but it wasn't what he hoped for. Terra Prime Alliance would not send ships to defend an Outer Rim colony. This wasn't their problem, they said. The Outer Rim Confederacy should handle their own defense. Torres cursed under his breath. Humanity had spread across 17 star systems over the past 200 years. But instead of growing stronger together, they had split into 3 major groups that barely spoke to each other anymore. The Terra Prime Alliance controlled Earth and the core worlds. The Outer Rim Confederacy governed the frontier colonies. The independent mining guilds ran the asteroid belts and resource extraction operations. Each group thought they were better than the others. Each group had their own fleet, their own government, their own way of doing things. And now, when real danger appeared, they wouldn't even help each other. "Sir, I'm detecting Outer Rim ships approaching," the sensor operator announced. 20 vessels, mostly light cruisers. Torres felt a moment of hope. Maybe they could mount a defense after all. "There's more, sir. A mining guild convoy is also entering the system. 15 ships. Now they had forces from all 3 human factions in the system. Together they might actually stand a chance against the Krathon fleet." Torres opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Commander Torres to all human vessels. I propose we coordinate our defense. If we work together." "This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of Terra Prime," a cold voice interrupted. "Terra Prime ships are here only to evacuate our citizens. We will not coordinate with Confederate forces." "And we don't take orders from Terra Prime," came another voice. It belonged to Captain Yuri Volkov of the Outer Rim Confederacy. "My ships will defend our colony. Everyone else should leave." The mining guild commander spoke last. "We're just here to protect our mining station. The rest of you can sort out your own problems." Torres watched his tactical display in dismay. The 3 human fleets were spreading out, each taking defensive positions that made no sense unless they worked together. The Terra Prime ships clustered near their embassy station. The Outer Rim vessels spread thin, trying to cover the entire colony. The mining guild ships formed a tight ball around their facility. Ambassador Chen, who was visiting the colony for trade negotiations, had come to the bridge to see what was happening. The elderly diplomat shook his head sadly as he listened to the human commanders argue over the radio. "We never learn," Chen said quietly. "Even now, with death at our door, we can't stop fighting each other." The Krathon ships began their attack exactly 6 hours after arriving. They moved with frightening precision, like they had done this many times before, and they had. The alien commander had studied the humans carefully. He knew about their divisions. He knew they wouldn't work together. His strategy was simple and effective. First, the Krathon sent 10 ships toward the mining guild station. The guild ships responded by pulling back even tighter, abandoning any pretense of helping defend the colony. They only cared about protecting their own property. Next, 15 Krathon vessels engaged the scattered Outer Rim defenders. The Confederate ships fought bravely, but they were too spread out. They couldn't support each other effectively. One by one, they started taking damage and pulling back. The Terra Prime ships hadn't fired a single shot yet. Admiral Mitchell was still trying to negotiate safe passage for her evacuation transports. She didn't seem to realize the Krathon weren't interested in negotiations. "Admiral Mitchell, please," Torres begged over the radio. "If you help the Outer Rim ships now, we can push them back." "Not our fight, Commander," Mitchell replied coldly. "Terra Prime has no defense treaty with the Confederacy." The Krathon commander must have been laughing at the humans. His ship swept through the Outer Rim defensive line like it was made of paper. 4 Confederate vessels exploded in the first 20 minutes. Then 6 more fell in the next hour. Captain Volkov's flagship took heavy damage. His voice came over the emergency channel, desperate and angry. "Where are our human brothers and sisters? Where is the help?" The mining guild ships finally joined the battle, but only because the Krathon had started attacking their station. They fought in their own corner of the battlefield, ignoring the dying Confederate ships just a few thousand kilometers away. Admiral Mitchell finally ordered her ships to engage, but only to cover the evacuation transports. The Terra Prime vessels fired a few volleys and then started retreating toward the jump point. They had saved their own people. That was all that mattered to them. Ambassador Chen stood on the bridge, tears running down his weathered face. He had spent 40 years trying to bring the human factions together. He had organized summit after summit, written treaty after treaty. All for nothing. Look at them, he said to Torres. Each fleet could have been strong if they worked as one. Instead, they're being destroyed separately. The Krathon didn't beat us. We beat ourselves. The battle was over in 6 hours. The colony's orbital defenses were rubble. 12 outer rim ships were destroyed. The mining guild lost their station and 8 vessels. Terra Prime escaped with minimal damage, but they would carry the shame of abandoning their fellow humans. The Krathon had lost only 3 ships. 3 ships to destroy an entire human colony. The alien commander broadcast a message as his troops landed on the planet below. His voice was translated by the computers, but the contempt came through clearly. Humans are even weaker than we expected. You claim to be one species, but you act like enemies. You would rather see each other die than stand together. It will be easy to conquer you all. Torres managed to escape in his damaged patrol ship, along with a few other survivors. As they jumped to hyperspace, he looked back at the burning colony. 300,000 humans lived there, or had lived there. In her flagship racing back to Earth, Admiral Mitchell wrote her report. She blamed the loss on the Outer Rim's poor tactical planning. It wasn't Terra Prime's responsibility to defend Confederate colonies, she wrote. Captain Volkov, dying in an escape pod with only 2 of his crew still alive, recorded a final message. He cursed Terra Prime for their cowardice and the mining guilds for their greed. His son back home would grow up hating the other factions even more than his father had. The mining guild's losses were written off as an acceptable business expense. They would simply raise prices to cover the cost of the destroyed station. Guildmaster Amara Okafor noted in her log that they should avoid systems where the other factions might draw enemy attention. Nobody seemed to realize the truth. The Krathon had found humanity's fatal weakness. Humans were brilliant individually. They were brave, creative, and stubborn. But they couldn't work together. They would rather lose everything than put aside their differences. The Krathon Empire had conquered dozens of species. Some fought harder than others. Some had better technology or larger numbers. But they had never found a species so eager to help defeat itself. As news of the colony's fall spread through human space, each faction blamed the others. Terra Prime said the Outer Rim was too aggressive and provoked the attack. The Confederacy accused Terra Prime of betrayal. The mining guilds declared neutrality and raised their prices. The Krathon commander sent his report back to the Empire. The humans are divided into 3 primary factions and several smaller ones. They will not unite even when facing extinction. We can conquer them one colony at a time. They will actually help us by refusing to help each other. 3 more human colonies would fall in the next month. Each time the same pattern repeated. The factions would arrive, refuse to coordinate, and be destroyed separately. Humanity had spread across the stars. They had built great cities on alien worlds and tamed hostile environments. They had achieved wonders their ancestors could only dream about, but they had forgotten the most important lesson of their history. Together, humans could overcome any challenge. Divided, they would fall to the first real threat they faced. The war with the Krathon Empire had begun, and humanity was losing before it even started fighting. The grand chamber on the Krathon battle station was designed to intimidate. The wall stretched up 30 meters, covered in trophies from conquered species. The air was kept cold and thin, making visitors struggle for breath. Everything about it said that the Krathon were superior and everyone else was beneath them. 3 groups of human diplomats sat in separate corners of the waiting area, refusing to look at each other. They had been there for 8 hours already. The Terra Prime delegation wore their finest formal suits. The Outer Rim representatives dressed in military uniforms. The mining guild officials carried data tablets showing economic projections. Each group had come to make their own deal with the Krathon Empire. Each believed they could negotiate better terms alone than together. Ambassador Chen sat with the Terra Prime group, though his heart wasn't in it. He had seen too many colonies burn, too many humans die for nothing but pride and old grudges. Admiral Mitchell sat beside him, her back straight and her face showing no emotion. "They're making us wait on purpose," Chen whispered to her. "Of course they are," Mitchell replied. "It's a negotiation tactic. We've used it ourselves many times." Across the room, Governor Alexei Volkov of the Outer Rim Confederacy paced back and forth. His son, Captain Yuri Volkov, had died 2 weeks ago defending another colony. The young man's ship had called for help that never came. Now the father was here, trying to save what was left of the Outer Rim colonies. Guildmaster Amara Okafor sat quietly with her advisors, running calculations on her tablet. The mining guilds had lost 12 stations in the past month. The economic damage was becoming severe. She needed to make a deal quickly or face bankruptcy. The door finally opened. A Krathon officer entered, tall and covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. The translator device on his chest turned his clicks and growls into words. "The Supreme Commander will see you now," he said. "All of you, together." The 3 human groups looked at each other uncomfortably. They had specifically requested separate meetings. "We were promised individual negotiations," Admiral Mitchell protested. The Krathon officer's mouth opened in what might have been a smile or a threat display. "The Supreme Commander does not repeat himself. Come now or leave." They had no choice. The 3 delegations filed into the main chamber, still trying to stay separate from each other. The Supreme Commander sat on a throne-like chair at the far end, elevated 10 meters above the floor. He was massive, even for a Krathon, with scars covering his scales. "Humans," he said, his voice booming through the chamber. "The galaxy's most pathetic species." Governor Volkov stepped forward angrily. "We came here to negotiate, not to be insulted." "Did you?" the Supreme Commander asked. "Then why did 3 separate groups come? Why do you not speak with one voice?" He pressed a control and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed the battle for Kepler 442, the first colony to fall. The humans watched their ships refuse to work together, being destroyed one group at a time. "We have conquered 73 species," the Supreme Commander said. "Some fought hard, some surrendered quickly, but never have we found a species that helps us defeat them. You humans do our work for us." The hologram changed, showing battle after battle. Each time, human ships from different factions arrived, failed to coordinate, and were destroyed separately. The pattern was undeniable and humiliating. "We came to negotiate peace," Admiral Mitchell said, her voice steady despite the anger burning inside her. "Peace?" The Supreme Commander laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Which peace? The Terra Prime peace? The Outer Rim peace? The Mining Guild peace? You cannot even agree on what peace means." Guildmaster Okafor stepped forward. "The mining guilds are prepared to pay tribute for non-aggression. We can offer—" "We don't want your money," the Supreme Commander interrupted. "We will take your stations anyway, but it amuses me that you try to buy safety while your fellow humans die." He stood up, his full height making him tower over everyone in the room. "Here are my terms. Unconditional surrender. All human military vessels will be destroyed. All colonies will accept Krathon governance. Any resistance will result in planetary bombardment. That's not negotiation, that's conquest." Governor Volkov shouted. "Yes," the Supreme Commander agreed. "And you make it so easy, watch." Another hologram appeared. This one showed a live feed from the New Dallas system, an Outer Rim colony currently under attack. Confederate ships were fighting desperately against a Krathon fleet. Then Terra Prime vessels appeared at the edge of the system. Admiral Mitchell grabbed her communication device. "Those are our ships. I didn't authorize this." On the screen, the Terra Prime ships began collecting refugees from the planet's surface. They completely ignored the Confederate ships calling for help. The humans in the chamber watched Confederate vessels explode while Terra Prime transports flew past them. "Your own people," the Supreme Commander said. "They could save those ships but choose not to. This is why you are pathetic." Guildmaster Okafor was looking at her own tablet in horror. "My station's in that system. They've locked down. They're not even trying to evacuate, just protecting the ore shipments." The Supreme Commander sat back down. "You may stay here and watch your people die, or you may leave. It makes no difference. We will take your worlds one by one, and you will help us by refusing to help each other." The 3 delegations were dismissed back to the waiting area. They sat in their separate corners again, but now the silence was different. They had all seen the same truth. They were watching their species commit slow suicide. A young communications officer named Marcus Reed was stationed on the Harmony Point Station, an old facility that sat at the junction between the three human territories. It was supposed to be neutral ground, but hardly anyone came there anymore. Reed's job was to monitor communications from all human factions and forward emergency messages. He had watched the feed from the Krathon battle station. Everyone in human space had. The humiliation was complete and undeniable, but Reed had also been collecting other feeds, other messages. And now he did something that would change everything. Reed had hours of recordings from the refugee camps, videos of children playing together, not knowing or caring which faction their friends belonged to. He had medical reports of Outer Rim doctors saving Terra Prime patients, of mining guild engineers fixing Confederate life support systems. In the camps where survival mattered more than politics, humans helped humans. Without permission, without orders, Reed compiled these recordings into a single broadcast. He showed human children teaching each other games from different colonies. He showed an old Terra Prime woman sharing her food with an Outer Rim family. He showed a mining guild pilot who had lost his legs carrying a Confederate child to safety. At the end, Reed added his own message. He was nobody important, just a junior officer on a forgotten station. But he spoke from his heart. This is who we really are, he said. Not the angry voices of our leaders. Not the old grudges that divide us. We're one species, one family, and we're dying because we forgot that. Look at these children. They don't hate each other. They learned that from us, and we can unlearn it if we choose to. The broadcast went out on all channels, civilian and military. Reed knew he would probably be arrested for unauthorized use of communication systems. He didn't care. Someone had to say it. Back in the Krathon chamber, the three delegations received the broadcast on their personal devices. Ambassador Chen watched it 3 times, tears in his eyes. Admiral Mitchell tried to maintain her composure, but her hands shook. Governor Volkov openly wept as he saw children who looked like his dead son playing with Terra Prime kids. Guildmaster Okafor closed her tablet full of economic projections. "We're fools," she said quietly. It was the first thing any of them had said to each other directly. "Yes," Ambassador Chen agreed. "We are." The Supreme Commander's words echoed in the chamber. The galaxy's most pathetic species, too busy fighting each other to fight their real enemy. It was true, and they all knew it. That night, the 3 delegations ate together for the first time. Not because they had resolved their differences, but because they finally understood that those differences were killing them all. The food tasted bitter. Everything did when seasoned with humiliation and regret. The next morning, they left the Krathon station without any agreement. The Supreme Commander didn't even bother to see them off. Why would he? They were already defeated. As their ships departed in 3 different directions heading back to their separate governments, each leader carried the same thought. Something had to change. The old way was death. They had seen it, lived it, tasted its bitter truth. Marcus Reed's broadcast continued to spread through human space. Within days, billions had seen it. Parents showed it to their children. Soldiers shared it in their barracks. Even some politicians, the few with consciences left, watched it in the privacy of their offices. The Krathon continued their advance. 3 more colonies fell that week. But something was different now. The anger was still there, but it was mixed with shame. The fear remained, but it was joined by determination. In small ways, barely noticeable at first, things began to change. A Terra Prime medical ship responded to an Outer Rim distress call. The message came to Admiral Sarah Mitchell at 3 a.m, Earth time. She was in her quarters aboard the flagship Enterprise, trying to sleep but failing. Too many ghosts haunted her dreams. Too many ships she had watched burn while she did nothing. "Admiral," her aide's voice cracked over the intercom. "Priority message from the Outer Rim, it's about your daughter." Mitchell was on her feet instantly. Her daughter Lisa had volunteered to serve as a medical officer on an Outer Rim colony. Mitchell had been furious when she found out. They hadn't spoken in 6 months. The video message was short and brutal. The colony was under Krathon attack. Medical personnel were trying to evacuate wounded Confederate soldiers. Lisa Mitchell appeared on screen for just a moment, her medical uniform covered in blood, helping to carry a stretcher. Then the building exploded. Admiral Mitchell stood frozen, watching the message repeat. Her daughter was gone. Her daughter had died saving Outer Rim soldiers. the same people Mitchell had refused to help dozens of times. 2 days later, Governor Alexei Volkov received similar news. His nephew Pavel had been commanding a supply ship when it received a distress call from a Terra Prime science station. Against direct orders, Pavel had diverted to help. He managed to evacuate 30 Terra Prime scientists before the Krathon destroyed his ship. Guildmaster Amara Okafor's loss came the same week. Her home station, where she had grown up and where her parents still lived, sent out a desperate call for help. The only ships in range were Confederate patrol vessels. They came without hesitation, fighting to the last ship to buy time for evacuations. They saved thousands of mining guild civilians. Okafor's parents weren't among them. 3 leaders. 3 losses. 3 examples of humans from different factions dying to save each other, while their leaders did nothing. The secret meeting was Ambassador Chen's idea. He sent encrypted messages to all 3 leaders using codes so old that most people had forgotten they existed. The meeting place he proposed was Harmony Point Station, the same forgotten facility where Marcus Reed had sent his famous broadcast. Mitchell arrived first, alone, except for 2 guards. She looked older than her 53 years, grief adding lines to her face. Volkov came next, his usual military bearing replaced by exhausted determination. Okafor was last, her corporate dress exchanged for simple work clothes. They met in the station's old conference room. The walls still showed faded pictures from the station's dedication ceremony 50 years ago, when humanity had dreamed of unity among the stars. "My daughter is dead," Mitchell said without preamble. "She died because I was too proud to make peace with you." She looked at Volkov. "Your son died because we wouldn't help each other. We killed our own children with our stupidity." Volkov nodded slowly. "My nephew Pavel. He knew what would happen if he helped that Terra Prime station. He did it anyway. He was better than me, better than all of us." Okafor pulled up data on her tablet. "I've run the numbers 1,000 times. If we continue as we are, humanity has 8 months before complete collapse. The Krathon are taking our worlds at an accelerating rate. But that's not the real problem." She showed them the data. Population movements, economic collapse, supply chain failures. We're destroying ourselves faster than the Krathon are. Our divisions are doing their work for them. Chen stood up and walked to the window looking out at the stars. "I've spent my life trying to bring us together through diplomacy. I failed. But perhaps disaster can do what diplomacy couldn't." "What are you proposing?" Mitchell asked. "Complete military unification," Chen said, turning back to them. "Not an alliance. Not a treaty. 1 human fleet. 1 command structure. 1 voice." The room fell silent. What Chen suggested went against everything the factions had built over 2 centuries. It would mean giving up independence, autonomy, the very identities they had fought to maintain. "My people will never accept Terra Prime leadership," Volkov said. "And Terra Prime won't accept Confederate command," Mitchell replied. "The guilds won't give up their neutrality," Okafor added. Chen smiled sadly. "Then we all die. It's that simple. We unite or we go extinct." They argued for 6 hours. Old grudges surfaced. Accusations flew. At one point, Volkov and Mitchell were shouting at each other about battles fought before they were even born. But each time the anger peaked, they remembered their losses. Lisa Mitchell, Yuri and Pavel Volkov, the thousands of guild civilians. Finally exhausted, they took a break. In the station's small cafeteria, they found Marcus Reed. The young officer had been reassigned here after his unauthorized broadcast, a punishment that kept him out of the way but not quite arrested. "Admiral Mitchell," Reed said, surprised. "Governor Volkov?" "Guildmaster Okafor. What are you all doing here?" "Trying to save humanity," Chen answered. "Failing so far." Reed looked at them for a long moment. Then he pulled up his tablet. "May I show you something?" The video he played was new. It showed the aftermath of the latest Krathon attack. But instead of the usual scenes of destruction, it focused on the rescue efforts. Terra Prime medics treating Outer Rim wounded, Confederate engineers repairing mining guild equipment, guild pilots evacuating civilians from all factions. "This is happening everywhere now," Reed said. "The people have already united, sir. They're just waiting for you to catch up." The 4 leaders returned to the conference room with a different energy. Reed was right. While they had been protecting their political positions, ordinary humans had started working together out of simple necessity and common decency. We need a new structure, Mitchell said, her tactical mind already working. Joint command, but with representation from all factions. Shared technology, Okafor added. My guilds have engine designs that could improve your ships by 30%. You have weapons and shields we need. Combined training programs, Volkov suggested. Our Marines are the best in ground combat. Your fleet officers are superior in space tactics. Together, they worked through the night. By morning, they had the framework of what would be called the Unity Accords. It wasn't perfect. There were still issues to resolve, old wounds that wouldn't heal overnight, but it was a beginning. The announcement was made simultaneously in all human systems. The three leaders appeared together on every screen, every communication channel. Behind them was the symbol of united humanity, a simple image of Earth surrounded by 17 stars, one for each colonized system. We have failed you, Admiral Mitchell began. Our divisions have cost us lives, worlds, and nearly our future. But we have learned, Governor Volkov continued. The Krathon showed us the price of our disunity. Our own people showed us the power of working together. From this moment, Guildmaster Okafor said, there is no Terra Prime fleet, no Confederate Navy, no Guild security force. There is only the United Human Defense Force. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Some politicians protested, warning about loss of sovereignty and independence. They were drowned out by the celebrations in the streets, the soldiers cheering in their barracks, the colonists crying with relief. Within 72 hours, the military integration began. It was chaotic, sometimes contentious, but it moved with desperate energy. Ships were reorganized into mixed crews. Technology was shared freely for the first time in decades. Training programs merged the best of each faction's methods. Captain Diana Foster commanded the first fully integrated warship. Her crew included Terra Prime officers, Outer Rim engineers, and Mining Guild navigators. On their first patrol, they encountered a Krathon scout squadron. In the past, Foster would have called for backup from her own faction, and likely been destroyed before it arrived. Now she sent out a united human distress call. Within minutes, she had response from 12 ships of mixed origin, all converging on her position. The Krathon scouts retreated without firing a shot. They had never seen humans respond so quickly or in such numbers to defend a single ship. The Unity Accords were formally signed on Harmony Point Station, with Marcus Reed as witness. The young officer who had reminded humanity of its better nature stood beside the leaders who had finally listened. But the real test was yet to come. The Krathon Empire had noticed the change in human behavior. Intelligence reports reached the Supreme Commander of ships with mixed crews, of coordinated responses to attacks, of technology being rapidly shared and improved. Impossible, the Supreme Commander said when briefed. Humans are incapable of unity. This is a deception, a desperate trick. His advisors weren't so sure. The latest probe attacks had met surprisingly organized resistance. Human ships that had never worked together before were suddenly coordinating like they had trained together for years. Perhaps we should reconsider our strategy. One advisor suggested carefully. The Supreme Commander's response was to order the largest fleet in Krathon history to be assembled. 500 warships, enough to crush Earth itself. He would prove that human unity was an illusion. One massive blow would shatter their pretended cooperation and reveal the divided, pathetic species beneath. As the Krathon fleet gathered, humanity prepared for its first true test as a united species. Engineers worked around the clock to upgrade every ship with shared technology. Pilots trained in mixed squadrons, learning each other's tactics. Ground forces integrated their command structures. The war room aboard Earth's orbital defense platform had never seen anything like this. Officers from all three former factions worked side by side, their different uniforms creating a patchwork of colors. Maps of 17 star systems covered the walls, showing Krathon positions in angry red and human forces in unified blue. Commander Mitchell stood at the central display with Commanders Volkov and Okafor. 3 weeks had passed since the Unity Accords. 3 weeks of frantic preparation. Now came the test. The Krathon fleet is massing near Sigma Draconis, Mitchell reported. 500 ships. Our scouts report they'll move toward Earth within 48 hours. They expect us to wait and defend, Volkov said. That's what divided humans would do. Each faction protecting only their most valuable assets. Okafor pulled up her data. But we're not divided anymore. I propose we show them exactly what that means. She outlined her plan. It was bold to the point of insanity. Instead of waiting for the Krathon to attack Earth, humanity would strike first. Not at the enemy fleet, but at every Krathon garrison in human space simultaneously. It was called Operation Tsunami, and it would require perfect coordination across 17 star systems. The mining guild stealth ships can deploy marine battalions behind enemy lines, Okafor explained. We've been using these vessels for smuggling for decades. The Krathon have never seen them in military action. Outer Rim heavy cruisers provide the hammer, Volkov added, warming to the plan. Once the Marines create chaos in their rear, we hit them hard from the front. Terra Prime carriers coordinate fighter support and electronic warfare, Mitchell finished. 3 different specialties working as one. The beauty of the plan was that it used each former faction's greatest strength, mining guild stealth and speed, Outer Rim firepower and determination, Terra Prime technology and coordination. Separately, each was formidable. Together, they were devastating. Captain Diana Foster received her orders with barely contained excitement. Her mixed crew had been training together for 3 weeks. Now they would prove that human unity was more than just words. All stations prepare for jump, she announced. Around her, Terra Prime officers worked alongside Outer Rim engineers and guild navigators. There was no hesitation, no friction. They had become one crew. At exactly 0600 hours Earth time, Operation Tsunami began. In the Proxima Centauri system, mining guild stealth ships materialized behind Krathon orbital platforms. Marines in powered armor, a mix of soldiers from all factions, stormed through airlocks the enemy didn't even know existed. The Krathon garrison commander barely had time to send a distress signal before his command center was captured. In the Wolf 359 system, Outer Rim heavy cruisers emerged from hyperspace in perfect attack formation. Their upgraded weapons, enhanced with Terra Prime targeting systems and guild power cores, tore through Krathon defensive lines like paper. Ships that had once fought each other now moved in perfect synchronization. In the Kepler 442 system, where the first human colony had fallen, Terra Prime carriers launched wings of fighters piloted by humans from all factions. They had trained together for only 3 weeks, but they flew like they had been wingmates for years. The Krathon defenders, expecting the usual uncoordinated human attacks, were overwhelmed in minutes. The same scene played out in system after system. Humanity struck everywhere at once, something the Krathon had believed impossible. No single faction could have managed such a coordinated offensive, but humanity was no longer divided into factions. On the Krathon Supreme Commander's flagship, alarms screamed from every station. His massive fleet was still gathering near Sigma Draconis, preparing for the assault on Earth. But reports flooded in from every garrison in human space. They were all under attack, all at the same moment. "This is impossible," he roared. "Humans don't have the numbers for this." His intelligence officer corrected him with trembling voice. "Supreme Commander, they're using combined forces. Ships we identified as belonging to different factions are working together. Their technology has been integrated. Their tactics merged." The Supreme Commander studied the tactical displays in disbelief. The humans were using Outer Rim assault tactics with Terra Prime precision and mining guild speed. It wasn't just cooperation. It was complete integration. "Recall the fleet," he ordered. "All ships return to defend our garrisons." But it was too late. By the time his orders reached the scattered Krathon forces, half their garrisons in human space had fallen. The speed of the human offensive was breathtaking. As soon as one system was liberated, the human forces jumped to support attacks in neighboring systems. They moved like water, flowing around resistance, combining and splitting as needed. Lieutenant Marcus Reed monitored communications from Harmony Point Station. His screens showed thousands of messages between human ships. What amazed him wasn't the quantity but the quality. Former enemies were warning each other about threats, sharing ammunition, covering retreats. The unity wasn't forced or formal. It was natural, like they had remembered how to be human again. One message stood out. A Terra Prime destroyer was damaged and drifting. The nearest ship was an Outer Rim cruiser, whose captain had lost his brother to Terra Prime forces just 6 months ago. Reed held his breath, wondering if old hatred would overcome new unity. The Outer Rim captain's response came immediately. "Hold on, Terra Prime, we're coming for you." Nobody gets left behind. Not anymore. Reed felt tears on his face as he logged the rescue. All across human space, similar scenes played out. Former enemies saving each other, fighting for each other, dying for each other when necessary. The war had changed humanity, but not in the way the Krathon expected. Instead of breaking them, it had reforged them into something stronger. The Battle of Sigma Draconis happened almost by accident. The Krathon fleet, rushing back to defend their collapsing garrisons, ran directly into the main human fleet that had been preparing to defend Earth. In the past, the three human factions would have fought with different tactics, unable to coordinate effectively, but now they moved as one organism. Mining guild scouts provided early warning. Terra Prime electronic warfare ships blinded enemy sensors. Outer Rim heavy cruisers formed the battle line. The Krathon Supreme Commander watched his tactical display with growing fear. The humans were adapting to his every move instantly. When he tried to flank them, mining guild interceptors were already there. When he attempted to break their center, Outer Rim cruisers shifted to meet him. When he called for reinforcements, Terra Prime carriers jammed his communications. "How?" he whispered. "How did they change so quickly?" His answer came in an intercepted human transmission. It was from Admiral Mitchell to her fleet, but it was being rebroadcast on all human frequencies. "Remember why we fight?" Mitchell said. "Not for Terra Prime, not for the Outer Rim, not for the guilds. We fight for humanity. All of humanity. The person beside you might have been your enemy a month ago. Now they're your brother, your sister. Protect them like family, because that's what we are." The battle lasted 18 hours. The Krathon fought with their usual skill and determination, but they were facing something they had never encountered before. Humanity united. Every human ship covered another. Every pilot watched another's back. Every gunner synchronized their fire with others. When the Krathon finally retreated, they had lost 200 ships. The humans had lost 70, but even those losses were minimized because damaged ships were immediately protected and evacuated by others, regardless of their original faction. The psychological impact was even greater than the military victory. Videos of the battle spread through human space within hours. Former enemies fighting side by side. Commanders from different factions trusting each other completely. Ships with mixed crews performing maneuvers that should have been impossible with such short training time. The message was clear. Humanity had remembered its greatest strength. In the weeks that followed, liberated colonies were rebuilt with resources from all factions. Terra Prime medical technology healed Outer Rim wounded. Outer Rim agricultural supplies fed mining guild stations. Guild engineering rebuilt everyone's infrastructure. The transformation was remarkable. Colonies that had barely survived under single faction control now thrived with shared resources and knowledge. Children attended schools that taught the best of all human cultures. Scientists shared research that had been kept secret for decades, but the war wasn't over. The Krathon Empire was vast, and they had only been pushed back, not defeated. The Supreme Commander retreated to the edge of human space, gathering reinforcements and trying to understand what had happened. His advisors showed him intelligence reports that made no sense. Humans who had hated each other for generations were now inseparable allies. Technology that had been jealously guarded was being freely shared. Military secrets that factions would have died to protect were now common knowledge. "They can't maintain this unity," the Supreme Commander insisted. "It's unnatural for them. They'll fragment again. We just need to wait." But waiting only made humanity stronger. Every day of unity brought new innovations. Terra Prime scientists with Outer Rim resourcefulness and guild practical experience created technologies none could have developed alone. The liberation campaign began with a surprise. Instead of attacking, the United Human Fleet broadcast a message to every Krathon-occupied world. The message was simple, translated into every known language and accompanied by footage of the Battle of Sigma Draconis. "We are coming to free our worlds. Any Krathon forces who withdraw peacefully will not be pursued. Any who remain will face united humanity. You have 72 hours. The Krathon Supreme Commander, watching from his fortress at the edge of human space, laughed bitterly. "They think to frighten us with mercy? We are the Krathon Empire. We have never retreated." But his garrison commanders weren't so confident. They had seen the battle footage. They had watched humans who had been killing each other for centuries suddenly fight as one. They had witnessed the impossible coordination, the seamless integration of different technologies and tactics. On the occupied world of New Haven, The Krathon garrison commander made a decision that shocked everyone. He ordered his forces to withdraw. When asked why by his subordinates, he showed them his analysis. "Look at their fleet composition," he said. 6 months ago, human ships could barely communicate with each other. Now they're performing synchronized jumps across 17 star systems. This isn't just military cooperation. They've undergone a fundamental transformation. Other garrison commanders weren't as wise. They prepared their defenses confident that human unity would crack under pressure. They were wrong. The liberation of New Europa showed how wrong they were. The attack came from all directions at once. Mining Guild stealth ships had been infiltrating the system for days, invisible to Krathon sensors. When the main fleet arrived, Marines were already disrupting ground defenses. Outer Rim heavy cruisers punched through orbital platforms while Terra Prime carriers provided cover with swarms of fighters. But what truly broke the Krathon defense was something they had never seen before. Human ships damaged in battle were immediately surrounded by others, protected while they made repairs. Pilots who ejected were rescued within minutes, regardless of which ship was closest. Ammunition and fuel were shared freely between vessels that had once been enemies. The Krathon fought with individual skill, but the humans fought as a single organism with 1,000 parts, each supporting the others. Commander Mitchell stood in the unified command center, watching the liberation unfold across multiple star systems. Beside her, Volkov and Okafor coordinated their forces with an ease that would have been impossible months ago. "New Texas is liberated," Volkov reported, unable to hide his smile. "The garrison surrendered after 12 hours. Our combined forces were simply overwhelming. The mining stations in the asteroid belt are free," Okafor added. "The Krathon couldn't adapt to our new tactics. They kept trying to exploit divisions that no longer exist." Ambassador Chen entered the command center with news that made everyone pause. "The Krathon Supreme Commander has requested a meeting. He wants to negotiate." The meeting took place on the same battle station where humanity had been humiliated months before, but this time everything was different. The human delegation arrived in a single ship, representatives from all former factions standing together. They wore new uniforms, designed to incorporate elements from each faction's traditions. The Supreme Commander sat on his throne, but he looked diminished. The scars on his scales seemed deeper, his eyes less certain. Around him, his advisors fidgeted nervously. "You have won," he said without preamble. "How?" Mitchell, Volkov, and Okafor exchanged glances. It was Chen who answered. "You gave us no choice but to unite or die," Chen said simply. "In trying to destroy us, you reminded us who we really are. One species, one family. But your divisions were centuries old," the Supreme Commander protested. "Your hatred for each other was deeper than your fear of us." "You're right," Volkov admitted. "We hated each other. My son died because of that hatred. But his death and thousands of others taught us that our hatred was killing us faster than you ever could. Our children showed us the way," Okafor added, thinking of the broadcast that had started the change. "They didn't care about old grudges. They just saw other humans who needed help." The Supreme Commander stood, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. "And now, you come here united. What are your terms?" "Complete withdrawal from all human space," Mitchell stated firmly. "Return of all prisoners. No future aggression against humanity or any other species. And if we refuse," the humans didn't threaten or bluster. They simply showed him the current tactical situation. The entire human fleet, over 3,000 ships now fully integrated and upgraded with shared technology, was positioned along the border. But more importantly, they showed him something else. Videos from liberated worlds showed humans rebuilding together, former enemies working side by side, sharing resources, teaching each other's children. The transformation wasn't just military, it was complete. "If you refuse," Chen said quietly, "we will push you back to your home world, not because we want to, but because we must protect ourselves and others from aggression. But we prefer peace. We've learned the cost of conflict." The Supreme Commander was silent for a long moment. His empire had conquered dozens of species through military might, but they had never faced anything like this. Not superior technology or larger numbers, but unity itself as a weapon. "How do I know this unity will last?" he asked. "How do I know you won't fragment again once we're gone?" Young Marcus Reed had been included in the delegation, a recognition of his role in humanity's transformation. He stepped forward, nervous but determined. Because we've built something stronger than military alliance, Reed said. Look at our ships. Every crew is mixed. Our children are growing up together, learning all our histories as one history. Our colonies share resources automatically now, not through negotiation but through habit. We've remembered that we're stronger together. And sir, with respect, we'll never forget again. The Supreme Commander looked at each human face. He saw no deception, no hidden agenda, just determination and, surprisingly, hope. The Krathon Empire accepts your terms, he said finally. We will withdraw. The evacuation of Krathon forces took 3 months. True to their word, the humans didn't attack retreating ships. They even provided medical aid to damaged vessels and helped evacuate Krathon wounded. It was a gesture that shocked the Supreme Commander and spread through the Krathon Empire, changing their entire perception of humanity. As the last Krathon ship left human space, celebrations erupted on every world. But the real celebration was quieter, more profound. Families that had been separated by factional boundaries reunited. Scientists shared discoveries that advanced human knowledge by decades and months. Artists combined traditions to create new forms of beauty. The United Human Confederation was formally established on the first anniversary of the Unity Accords. It wasn't a government that erased all differences, but one that celebrated them while recognizing the fundamental unity beneath. Admiral Sarah Mitchell, now simply Coordinator Mitchell, stood with her colleagues on Earth's orbital platform, watching the first truly unified human fleet perform maneuvers. Ships that had been designed to fight each other now moved in perfect harmony. We almost lost everything, Volkov said quietly. But we didn't, Okafor replied, and now we're stronger than we ever were apart. In schools across human space, children learned a new history. Not one that hid the divisions and conflicts of the past, but one that showed how humanity had overcome them. They learned about the war with the Krathon not as a victory over an enemy, but as a victory over themselves. The story spread beyond human space. Other species, facing their own divisions and conflicts, requested human mediators. The species that had been called the galaxy's most pathetic had become a symbol of unity's power. 20 years passed. A new generation grew up knowing only united humanity. They worked together on projects their parents couldn't have imagined. Ships that could travel further and faster, colonies that thrived in environments once thought impossible, art and culture that combined the best of all human traditions. In a university on Mars, alien students studied what historians called the human paradox. Professor Chen, grown old but still sharp, taught the final class of his career. The Krathon were right, he told his mixed class of humans and aliens. We were weak when divided. We spent more energy fighting each other than building our future. But they were also wrong. They thought our divisions were permanent, part of our nature. He pulled up the famous image of the 3 commanders standing together, signing the Unity Accords. What the Krathon didn't understand was that humanity's greatest weakness and greatest strength were the same thing, our diversity. Yes, it led to division and conflict, but when we finally embraced it, when we united not in spite of our differences but because of them, we became something no single faction could have been. A young Krathon student, part of an exchange program that would have been impossible during the war, raised a claw. Professor, my people still study humanity's transformation. We've tried to replicate it with other divided species. It never works the same way. Why? Chen smiled. Because unity can't be forced from outside. The Krathon gave us the push, yes. But we had to choose to catch each other instead of falling separately.